All right, so let's start by creating a new project. Go ahead and go to New. I'm saving mine on my E drive. I'm just going to name my project uh, The Adventures of Cano, and I'm going to go ahead and hit Create Project. Now what we're going to do is we're going to learn the different aspects of Unity. We're going to design a game kind of on the fly, and we're going to publish it to a website so that you can have it embedded in for your portfolio. So the first thing I want to do is set up my environment. So I'm going to go up to File, Build Settings, and select WebGL. Now if you don't have WebGL installed, it's going to prompt you. Go ahead and install that. And I'm going to hit Switch Platform. I'm going to pause the video as it switches. Actually, I don't have to. I have a pretty powerful computer, so it didn't take that long. So what I want to do is I want to create my first scene, which is my main menu. So I'm going to go up to File, Save As, and I'm just going to save this scene here into this folder called Scenes, and I'm going to name this Main Menu and hit Save. Now something I should point out is with the new version of 2018, it automatically creates this folder called Scenes here. And what you'll notice is it's saved inside that Scenes folder main menu. Now the Unity interface, I'm going to go over it really briefly, and then because we're going to be getting a lot of it. Up here is our game window. This is where we set up our game. So you can see here's my camera that I see the game in. There's a directional light here, and there's this event system which we're going to actually script and work with later. This projects tab here is assets. It's just an assets folder, and this actually exists or lives on our hard drive. So I'm going to right click and go to Show and Explorer. And you can see that it opens up the Adventures of Cano and assets library and all this stuff in here. And if I go inside these assets folder, you can see here's our scenes folder, and there's that main menu that we just created. The first thing I want to do is in this build settings that we did the switch, is I want to grab this main menu and just dock it here. Now these are all of our scenes that when I go to build or make my game, it it uses these as it kind of tells us what we want to build, because oftentimes you might want to create a scene for setting up your character or things like that, and you don't necessarily want it to be part of your final build. Build is sort of a generic game term that means your final executable or release of your game, whatever it might be, an Android, an Xbox game, a PS4. So the next thing I want to do is I want to create a level, and it's just going to be my first level. So my can actually lives in a house. So I'm going to start my game off in my can's house. So I'm going to go to File, Save As, and I'm going to save another scene in the Scenes folder. And I'm just going to name this level 1 underscore 01 underscore house. Right? So it's just the level that we're on in the house. You could, if you want to, get rid of that underscore and just do level 01 underscore house. Either one is fine. So I'm going to hit save here. You could see that it popped up in here, and I'm going to grab this, I'm going to drop it underneath here. Now let's go ahead and create our main menu, and this is going to be the menu where we click on it and it actually starts our game. So in our hierarchy, now remember this hierarchy pertains to what's in our scene. I'm just going to right click in here and I'm going to go to UI and I'm going to create a button. Um, Now if I hit F to focus here, you can see here's my button, right? And it's not necessarily loading up at first. I think it's missing our, let's see, here's our canvas. Here's our canvas. Let's make sure it's screen space camera here. And I'm going to grab my main camera. I'm going to drop it in here. And let's find our camera. Let's hit focus on that. And let's go here and let's do screen space overlay. Oh, I see what the issue is. My button went all the way down there. So I can move it back into my scene. So when I created this canvas, it shifted my button all the way down on the floor here. So let's talk a little bit about navigating in this window. So notice when we created this canvas, we maybe you're off kilter over here or you can't see anything. One way to focus on something is if you select your canvas Now if I hit F to focus in this view, F as in Frank, you can see it zooms in on this canvas object. If I want to zoom in on the button, I hit F to zoom in. Now if I want to zoom in and out without having to use the F key, I can just use the wheel on my mouse. If I want to pan, I can click that wheel in. If I want to rotate around this item, I hold the Alt key down and I left click. And I'm going to be repeating these a lot. If I want to move my button, right, which exists underneath my canvas here, you'll notice up at the top here there's a hand. This is our panning hand. This is our move. And if you want to scale this up, you can, well, if you want to rotate it, you can rotate it that way. I'm going to hit Control Z and undo that. I can scale up my button with this. Or if I hit R, you can see it selects this one and I can just scale it up this way. So practice sort of in our view here, we're going to go with just a 16 by 9, which is kind of like a default monitor view because remember this is going to be a web game. With your button selected, hit W and just bring it up like this. And just sort of position it, right? And then under my button, I have an attribute here called text. I'm going to rename this Start Game. And I want an options window so that we can adjust the audio and stuff. So I'm going to select this button here. I'm actually going to rename this Start Button. And I'm going to decompress this. So I'm just looking at my Start button here. I'm going to hit Control and D as in duck. I'm going to move this down. I'm going to copy it again, Control D as in duck. And under this Start Game, this new Start button here, I'm going to name this one Options Button. Did I name that right? Yes. And then in this one, I'm going to rename this one Exit Button. So this will be our way of turning off the game. So Exit Button. So let's go underneath this. And under text here, I'm just going to name this Options. Oops, let's go back. And then I'm going to name this Exit Button. Under text here, Exit. And if you feel like your text is too small, right? So and we're going to get into much more detail. You can always increase the font size, right? So I can go into each one of these. Just kind of bring these up a little bit. And I'm just left clicking on the in between here where it has these two little arrows and it lets me kind of go back and forth to adjust the size. So we have our main menu and in the next video what we'll do is we'll look at our first script, which is going to be our game manager that's going to control the clicking on these.